So we have about 6 interest group and working group updates, and it's gonna be all these interest group and working group chairs had 2 slides to just fill in their content, and they all will have 3 minutes each, and John would be forwarding these slides. So the first one we have is Chris for Marketing Working Group.
Hello, thank you very much then, Nabila. So I'll crack through these because I've slightly cheated by extending the number of slides a bit, but it should still only take 3 or 4 minutes. So my name is Chris Orr. I'm the current interim university librarian at the University of Hull in the UK, and I'm also chair of the Samvera Marketing Working Group. And as the slide there shows, we meet on a fortnightly basis at 11:30 Eastern Time on a Wednesday, with our next meeting being on the November the 4th, if anyone would like to join us. We're currently meeting using our Slack channel, which the tag for which is on the slide there, marketing_WG. And we have a wiki page where we keep up-to-date records of our activities, our agendas, and our records of what we do. So please take a look at that if you'd like to get a better idea of the work the group undertakes. The current members are listed there, and I'd like to say a great big thank you to all of those who have for their contribution and their help with pulling together the different ideas that we look to take forward. As ever, with a lot of the working groups, new members are welcome. And essentially, if you have someone who is like to help spread the word about Samvera, or who would like to has a particular gift for communicating the services that you provide through your libraries, then it'd be great to have them involved. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. So activity in recent months has been a little limited because of coronavirus priorities, because we had to give attention to what was happening at the members' home institutions. But the 2 main areas of focus have been expanding on how to engage with the Samvera vision, which we'll look at in a moment, and also development of a workshop on how the Samvera community can support digital strategy for AUL and equivalent staff, so focusing on senior staff within library organizations. We've also been, having reviewed the website in the first few months of this year, there have been 1 or 2 outstanding tweaks that came from that, which we've continued to do to keep it up to date and fresh. Next slide, please. So just to showcase, in case you haven't seen it, is on the front of our Samvera website, we have the Samvera vision, as it says there. And key to communicating this vision has been to highlight the key words within that vision, which essentially get to the crux of what we're trying to communicate to others when they come to look at Samvera. That we are a vibrant and welcoming community who share challenges, build expertise, create solutions, bringing digital collections or making them accessible now and into the future. So very much about a proactive engagement on how we actually look at the challenges that we are facing with regard to our digital collections, identify solutions, and seek to put them into practice. Each of those keywords, as you'll see, has been linked to a somewhere else, and that's largely other more specific pages on the website, or in some cases on the wiki, which help people to take people directly to additional information which would help expand on that particular point. We've put in place those initial links. We welcome feedback on those. And if people have any other suggestions for where it might be useful to link those keywords, then do please let us know. Next slide, please. If you'd like to take a further look at what Samvera can offer by way of the services we offer and what Samvera is, then please do take a look at the Samvera FAQ. That is an extensive range of questions which have been collected from various different conversations in the past, various different engagements. Clearly, if you see a question that you have is not there, then again, please do let us know, because what we'd like to be able to do is to capture the questions that are arising so that we can provide an answer to them via that FAQ. We have a Samvera leaflet. Please take a look at that. And if you are coming to Samvera new, then please do use it and take on board what it raises. If you have any questions, then please do contact us through the mailing lists. If you're familiar and working with Samvera, please do use the leaflet to help with your internal promotion, or indeed, if you are talking about Samvera at other events, you can point people at the Samvera leaflet. And as evidenced by this presentation and others at Connect, we have a template that people can use for Samvera related presentations. And there is also a sample Samvera slide deck for introductions to Samvera, which can be used as you see fit. Next slide, please. In terms of our next steps, we want to try and explore a bit more about how Samvera and local implementations have been able to, or can, or will be able to support institutions in the current COVID-19 climate, i.e. how has the provision of online collections been able to assist, given the lack of access to physical resources because of COVID-19. It'd be good to try and understand that better, because it would highlight the value that Samvera and other repository solutions can offer. We'd like to build on the AUL workshop, which was delivered last Thursday as part of Connect this year, but we'd like to build on that to consider other audiences and whether or not more specific messaging or workshops for them would also be of value. And we'd like to add to the small number of user profiles and case studies that we have, knowing that there's a great deal of richness out there that we'd like to be able to present. Next slide. In fact, that's the last slide, so I'll move on to the next one now.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Next up is Adam.
All right. Just quick clarification. The UX, it's been an interest group, not quite a working group this past year. But yeah, traditionally, I guess more also pre-COVID times, our meeting time would be on the third Tuesday of each month at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And that is the current Slack, I guess, channel group name. So looking back at what the UX interest group did over the past year, so I guess the goal was to try to organize like monthly demos around the Samvera community of anything pertaining to UI, UX related concerns or new projects or just cool stuff people were working on. And we had some really good, helpful, informative presentations from Not8, Princeton, from the Avalon Media System Project. And then I would try to fill in the gaps when there was not quite so much stuff to volunteer to show. But more or less, we tried to do like a monthly like show and tell format, just to kind of see what other people are working on. And I think that overall this approach for just sharing information seemed to work reasonably well. However, next slide, please. I also have come to a few realizations. So I've been the facilitator / co-facilitator for about 2 years with the UX interest group, and I've kind of seen the interest wane a bit here and there. And I would say my overall judgment is that there doesn't seem like a ton of interest in the UX interest group. I don't know what the norms are, but most meeting attendance, range from like 3 to 5 people, sometimes, upwards of like 10. But, not like huge numbers, I guess, for each monthly meeting. So I was thinking about that, and my thoughts were that I think user experience and UX is a pretty broad topic. And if it's not pinned to something like more concrete or more tangible, or to something like Hyrax or a certain application, Possibly it's just like hard to focus those conversations. I think the most productive part of what the UX interest group accomplished, looking back over the past 2 years, about a year and a half ago, or maybe 2, we worked on a Hyrax accessibility audit, which was a really productive exercise with people from Penn State and Notre Dame. And that worked pretty well because, again, I think we had something something to actually work on. And then lastly, my realization is I'm not a user experience expert. Most of my skill set, I guess, is more like UI, JavaScript, application development. And in my opinion, I think user experience is a discipline in and of itself, of which I might not be the best representative of. So next slide, please. Is there one more slide? Yep. So what I'm proposing, and I brought this up to the partners meeting last week, is 1 of 2 options: either transitioning from UX to UI working or interest group, or option number 2, we could leave the UX interest group if someone else is curious or interested in picking up and being a facilitator on that, about more like user experience related issues and concerns. Ping me. And we could leave that group and have like a UI working group be more of an offshoot. So how would it be different? In my mind, I think a UI interest group would be focused more on implementation. So, you know, it might be a little bit more technical on like how to achieve UI related outcomes through JavaScript, CSS, HTML, standard, I think like current, you know, front end tool sets. It would definitely have a focus on accessibility. That would be a primary concern of the interest group. And actually, we just had a little chat about this in the UX interest group Slack channel. And it would be focusing on the implementation of accessibility instead of more general accessibility concerns. But how do we actually like monitor our apps accessibility like levels, and what can we do to improve those? Another focus to be on shareable user interfaces, components, potentially like component libraries. I know there was a comment earlier on about that in a presentation we gave. And also an interest would be like, is there a common ground for UI related concerns or projects or anything like amongst Samvera applications or amongst like shareable packages or JavaScript modules or style guides, pattern libraries amongst Samvera developers. And lastly, a focus on just making UI look and perform as professionally as possible. And again, it would focus some of the other, you know, could also discuss some of the latest trends, such as like static site generators. We saw a presentation earlier on mentioning like Gatsby or Next.js or some of these tool sets that are kind of emerging and getting a lot of popularity as of late. Could also think about UI component architecture and how to actually build single page apps. That'd be something we could discuss. Could be concerned with reusable design systems and focusing on NPM, open source module development as well, and just how to share interesting or helpful open source packages and projects. And I think a UI interest group could be geared towards developers, team leads, managers, application architect. It doesn't have to be just developers. I think it could be of interest to anyone that's involved in either planning out UI related stuff or developers themselves. So if people are interested in this, I'm going to keep, or I guess we'll keep the UX interest group Slack channel open for a little while and try to figure out what the path forward kind of looks like. And if people are interested, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Adam. We have Nora and Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Goslen, and I'm one of the co-facilitators of the Samvera Metadata Interest Group, along with Nora Egloff. And I'm happy to be here today to just give a brief update about the Samvera Metadata Interest Group. So SMIG meets on the fourth Tuesday of the month from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern via Zoom. And our calls average around 10 to 15 participants. And our next meeting is on Tuesday, November 24th. And we can be found on Slack in the Samvera metadata channel. So the goals of SMIG are to identify models that may help community newcomers, furthering interoperability among Samvera projects, providing support for the community and a place to ask metadata questions, providing ways to share metadata work, collecting documentation in order to more broadly facilitate shared modeling, and developing and charging working groups for the Samvera community metadata activities. Next slide. Our wiki is shown here and includes information about the group's current activities, as well as meeting information such as meeting notes and call-in instructions. And since Virtual Connect, we've had some great work done by two of our current working groups, the Control Vocabularies Decision Tree Working Group and the Hyrax version 3 Metadata Application Profile Documentation Working Group. The chairs of those groups, Julie Hardesty and Nora Egloff, respectively, will be giving updates on these groups in just a few minutes right after this update. So thank you, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Anna. The next one is Julie. And just wanted to remind everyone that you can post your questions on the Slack channel, because we will not have a question answer time for all the interest and working group updates. Julie, you are up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Julie Hardesty from Indiana University, and the Samvera Controlled Vocabularies Decision Tree Working Group has been working since February of this year. And I want to thank the members, first off, Don Childress, Gretchen Geegan, Rebecca Patillo, Eric Radio, and Lynette Rail. This has been a really great collaboration. Next slide, please. So I kind of glossed over the Samvera Slack channel and the meeting times, because as you can see, our time frame is kind of sort of, we're supposedly done right now, and we're almost there. So we're pretty close to being finished. Our goal for this was to provide a decision tree for finding and evaluating and using controlled vocabularies behind descriptive metadata fields. So this is kind of something we're interested in for the Samvera community, as well as more generally, just a general concept of how do you go about finding a controlled vocabulary and deciding that it's worth it to use it or not. But we're also interested in something that's useful to the Samvera community specifically in terms of how to incorporate a controlled vocabulary within Hyrax. So when we approach this with the deliverables of trying to identify use cases, so we've got Hyrax examples that we're specifically looking at, trying to identify ways to find controlled vocabularies, sources to go to for controlled vocabularies, and then identifying how to do an evaluation of a controlled vocabulary to decide if it's good to use, and then specifically in Hyrax, providing examples within Hyrax for making use of adding or changing a controlled vocabulary for descriptive metadata in Hyrax. Next slide, please. So we've got a couple of outputs. We've got the decision tree document that looks at, it's approaching it in levels. So there's controlled vocabulary, looking at reviewing what comes with a product that you might be using, what you need to consider to replace a controlled vocabulary, or if you need to create or edit or modify a controlled vocabulary for use. And then with each of these, we're trying to provide Hyrax examples. And this is connecting over to the other output that we've created, which is a controlled vocabulary and criteria spreadsheet of options that we've gathered so far. And that's just getting started. We sent this out to the Samvera Metadata Google group for review in September. So we're just now doing review work of this. So next slide, please. And the spreadsheet of controlled vocabularies and criteria is really a work in progress. We're trying to establish how we want to put this together. We're hoping to set it up so that it can be collaboratively added to. So how that should work. So all of this is out for feedback and review right now. So we're actually, tomorrow, there's going to be a lightning talk that's going to get a little bit more into the details of those outputs. And we're going to be asking for feedback from the community. So you can take a look at things now on the CV Decision Tree Working Group wiki page, which is underneath the Samvera Metadata Interest Group. And you can check out the lightning talk tomorrow. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Next up, we have Nora.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so the Hyrax 3 Metadata Application Profile Documentation Working Group is another subgroup of SMIG, and we spun up in March just to do a thorough review of the existing metadata documentation within the community, and basically just on a project needed basis. And I think this and the controlled vocabulary decision tree are a good example of the, for newcomers to the community, of how the interest group and working group framework can work to just do specific tasks for the community when there's an identified need. So we've been meeting on occasional Wednesdays from 9 to 10 a.m. Was every 2 weeks, but it's slowed down as the work has been completed. Our website is a wiki child page of the metadata interest group page, so it can be found there or at this link. And these are our members. I'd like to thank all of them for their hard work and for diligently meeting many times to get this work done. Next slide, please. So our tasks and goals to be delivered by the release of Hyrax 3 or Samvera Connect 2020, whichever came first, which in this case, Connect came first, was to do an environmental scan of the existing documentation, just places where folks can find information about metadata application profile in order to migrate into a Samvera solution bundle, in this case Hyrax, to look at what changes have been done since the 2.0 release, as well as any relevant working group outputs that we could incorporate, then to generate updated documentation and to share and encourage its use. I think that really makes it easier to migrate in if you kind of know what you're getting into and how the metadata application profiles behave for generic works and collections out of the box. Next slide, please. So these are the 3 main deliverables of the working group. We've created a metadata application profile spreadsheet that is linked off several wiki pages and also off the knowledge base. The main knowledge base page that contains information about metadata is this defining metadata in the model page, which reflected, I think, 2.3 stable release. So it was a few releases back. So we've updated the language on that, as well as the tables, to reflect how Hyrax 3 core and basic metadata will function out of the box. So that contains information like cardinality, the predicates, how different namespaces define metadata properties. And these are configurable by the user, but this is just how it functions out of the box. And Lastly, we've made a Hyrax 3 version of the M3 spec YAML file. If you're a newcomer and perhaps you have no idea what that is, M3 stands for the Machine Readable Metadata Modeling Working Group, and that was a working group, subgroup of SMIG from the past couple years. And they created a application agnostic specification for machine readable metadata. And we created an adaptation of that, which is specifically for Hyrax 3. And I have to give a shout out to Anna Marie Close, a member of both M3 working group and this one, for really being a driving force behind that. So that spec is now available in the Houndstooth GitHub repo, which is linked in the slide. And that just presents an alternative view that's both machine readable and maybe a bit more legible to developers for how metadata behaves in the application. So these 3 deliverables are all basically complete, although we're going to wait until the stable release of 3 to make the commit for the knowledge base site. Next slide, please. So for next steps, we have taken like a month break from meeting, but our next meeting is on November 18th. And we're currently just monitoring the final stages of development for the Hyrax 3 release. And the kind of quality assurance testing that's going on for that right now. And we'd like to use this opportunity during Samvera Connect to share these outputs, make folks aware of the work that goes into maintaining updated documentation. And hopefully, you know, if anyone has any feedback and would like to take the time to review these, comment on whether or not they're helpful to you, or if there's information that you feel should be there but is lacking, please feel free to do so. And you could let us know this feedback through our Slack channel, which is up here on the page. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Nora. Next up is, it's me. So for repo management interest group, Moira, Downey from Duke, and I co-chair this group, and the regular meetings are first Monday of the month at 1 p.m. The Slack channel is Repo Managers, and there's a link to the website. The purpose of this group is just for all different kinds of managers. I don't even want to say all managers. It's like it's open to anyone who is working with a Hyrax repo, and you are welcome to come and join us. The activities that we have done since last Connect is we helped conduct Q&A testing for the new Hyrax release. And we have had several presentations from Palki and Duke on their recent Hyrax work. And now in the future, we are looking forward to work with Julie as the Hyrax PO and Heather as the community manager. And we are thinking about the charge and the alignment of this group with the other groups like the Hyrax interest group or the other group that exists. Next slide, please. So generally, this group is charged with providing input on feature development and generally generating use cases for and feedback on specific feature implementation. This is an avenue for informal sharing and discussing recent work done on Samvera projects and apps, general non-developer community engagement. And it is open to all types of manager roles or anyone working with any Hyrax repository. It's more like non-technical group. So if you have any questions about how your Hyrax repo is doing, or if you want to share anything about your Hyrax repos, please join us. We meet every first Monday of the month, and the next meeting is on November 2nd.